Omar Al-Rashid, a young Saudi billionaire with power and wealth beyond imagination, and Leila, the mysterious woman who became his bride, were celebrated as the kingdom's perfect couple. But within hours of their lavish wedding, Leila was found beaten to death in their honeymoon suite, her body telling a story of secrets, betrayal, and a brutal rage that shocked the world. The wedding was unlike anything the city had seen in years. The ballroom shimmered with golden chandeliers that bathed the marble floors in soft, glowing light. Rows of tables, each draped in silk, overflowed with exotic flowers imported from every corner of the world. The guests arrived in diamonds, designer gowns, and tailored suits, each one eager to be part of an event that symbolized power, money, and prestige. Photographers captured every detail, from the crystal-encrusted stage to the towering seven-tiered cake that seemed more like a sculpture than something meant to be eaten. The groom, barely in his early 30s, was already considered one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom. His fortune came from a family empire built on oil, banking, and real estate. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Rumors of his expensive cars, private jets, and a lifestyle too grand for most people to even imagine. Yet tonight, he appeared calm and composed, shaking hands with dignitaries and accepting congratulations as though this lavish display were simply routine. The bride glided into the room like a vision. Her dress sparkled with thousands of hand-sewn crystals, and her veil trailed behind her like a silver river. Many of the guests had never met her before. In fact, few even knew her name until the invitations went out. She seemed mysterious, almost otherworldly, as though she had been plucked from a dream and placed into this palace of excess. Her beauty silenced the crowd, but her story remained untold. As the night carried on, musicians played, dancers performed, and the newlyweds exchanged smiles for the cameras. To outsiders, it looked like the beginning of a perfect union. But hidden beneath the layers of gold and glitter was a secret that would soon shatter the illusion, turning joy into horror before the sun could rise. Years before the grand wedding, the bride lived a life far removed from the circles of wealth and power she now moved in. She had grown up with little stability, drifting between cities in Europe, never staying in one place for too long. In her late teens, she found herself drawn into a world of glamour and risk. She began working as a hostess at exclusive private parties, the kind attended by businessmen, politicians, and men who thrived in the shadows. Her beauty opened doors, and soon she was surrounded by luxury that was never her own: borrowed jewels, designer gowns lent for appearances, and the company of men who promised more than they ever gave. As the years passed, she reinvented herself repeatedly. She changed her name, altered her background, and carefully crafted a version of herself that could pass among the wealthy without raising suspicion. Each reinvention pushed her further from the truth of who she once was, and eventually, even she began to believe the story she had written for herself. By the time she met the young billionaire, her past had been buried under layers of polished lies. To him, she was the daughter of a respected family abroad, raised with grace and sophistication. Yet not everyone was convinced. There were traces left behind, photos from years earlier, whispers in crowded nightclubs, rumors of wealthy companions she had entertained. These fragments were enough to spark curiosity, and curiosity in the wrong hands can turn dangerous. Someone in the groom's inner circle began to investigate, digging into the life she had tried so desperately to erase. What began as small doubts soon grew into dangerous knowledge, and while the bride celebrated her new identity, the truth was already making its way toward her, waiting to explode. The night should have been filled with nothing but celebration. The couple had left the grand ballroom surrounded by applause, their every move captured by flashing cameras. When they finally retreated to the luxury suite reserved for them at one of Riyadh's most exclusive hotels, the bride believed she had succeeded in securing her new life. But in the silence of the early hours, the mood shifted. The groom's phone lit up with a message from an anonymous sender. At first, he ignored it, expecting another congratulatory note. Instead, what appeared on the screen would unravel everything. The message contained a series of photographs. They were grainy, taken years earlier, but unmistakable. There she was, his new wife, laughing in nightclubs, her arms wrapped around men whose faces suggested influence and scandal. Alongside the photos came documents, passports with different names, hotel records, and evidence of an identity crafted with precision but never stable. The message ended with a single warning. This is who she really is. The groom's hands trembled as he scrolled through the images. Each new file confirmed the betrayal. The polished woman who had promised him loyalty and purity was, in his eyes, nothing more than a fraud. A sense of humiliation washed over him, sharper than anger itself. In a society where honor meant everything, the thought of having been deceived was unbearable. He said nothing to her in that moment, choosing instead to withdraw into silence. She noticed the change in his eyes, but could not understand what had shifted. He replayed the images again and again, each glance hardening into fury. By the time dawn neared, his heart was no longer filled with love or excitement for the future. It was consumed by something far darker, and it was only a matter of time before it erupted. Inside the secluded suite, the atmosphere grew heavy. The silence was no longer peaceful but suffocating, pressing down on both of them like a weight that could not be lifted. The bride, still glowing from the endless celebrations, tried to hold on to the illusion of happiness. She arranged her dress on the velvet chair, removed her jewelry, and prepared for a night she thought would mark the start of her new life. Yet the groom's presence behind her was different, cold, tense, and unrelenting. Hours passed in uneasy quiet until the storm broke. Fueled by rage, humiliation, and the fear of public disgrace, the groom snapped. His anger exploded into violence, and the luxury walls of the suite became witnesses to a horror no one outside could imagine. The blows were brutal and relentless, each one more vicious than the last. The bride, fragile and unprepared for such sudden cruelty, had no chance to defend herself. The night that was meant to seal their union turned into her last moments on earth. When it was over, the room bore the marks of destruction. Blood stained the silk sheets, and shattered glass glittered across the floor like cruel confetti. The bride lay motionless, her beauty extinguished in an instant. The groom, breathless and shaking, stared at what he had done. There was no undoing it, no return to the dream that had begun only hours earlier. By morning, hotel staff approached the suite with trays of breakfast, expecting to find a newlywed couple still basking in joy. Instead, they discovered the chilling scene. The groom claimed she had fallen, insisting it was a tragic accident. But the bruises, the broken bones, and the sheer violence etched into her body told a different story, one no excuse could conceal. The discovery of the bride's body sent shockwaves through the hotel, but the groom's family acted with speed and precision. Within hours, their representatives arrived, issuing orders, making phone calls, and sealing off access to the suite. Staff were warned not to speak, their silence purchased with thick envelopes of cash. The scene was quickly scrubbed, evidence hidden away before authorities could begin a proper investigation. For a family so powerful, influence was currency, and they spent it without hesitation to protect their reputation. The official story presented to the police was carefully constructed. According to the groom, his wife had slipped, struck her head, and died before he could call for help. Doctors summoned under pressure echoed the explanation, even as they privately noted that her injuries did not match a simple fall. Papers were signed, testimonies altered, and the machinery of silence rolled forward. Yet rumors are not so easily erased. Guests from the wedding, still buzzing with curiosity, began to whisper about strange events. Some had noticed tension between the newlyweds as the night ended. Others recalled seeing the groom step away, phone in hand, his expression dark. A few spoke quietly to foreign journalists who were already circling the story, sensing a scandal too big to be ignored. Within days, headlines abroad questioned the official account, and international human rights groups demanded a transparent investigation. The family faced a dilemma: bury the story entirely and risk global outrage, or allow it to unfold and risk their legacy being tarnished forever. Attempts to silence the press only fueled the fire, and what was meant to remain a private shame grew into an international scandal. Behind the polished walls of the family estate, panic began to spread. The truth was escaping their grip. As investigators dug deeper, the carefully polished lies began to unravel. Forensic experts confirmed what many had already suspected: the bride's injuries were not the result of an accident, but of prolonged, violent assault. With mounting international pressure, local authorities could no longer ignore the truth. The groom was taken into custody, a shocking image for the public. A billionaire heir, once untouchable, now escorted by guards like a common criminal. Yet the investigation soon revealed that his rage had not sparked in isolation. There had been a trigger, a hand that set the fire. Tracing the anonymous message that had arrived on his phone led to a discovery no one expected. The digital trail pointed directly to someone within his own family, his cousin, a man long overlooked in the hierarchy of power who had quietly nurtured resentment. For years, this cousin had lived in the groom's shadow, watching his fortune, prestige, and influence pass him by. The marriage was his chance to strike. By unearthing the bride's past and sending it to the groom at the most vulnerable moment, he orchestrated a downfall that would remove his rival from the line of succession. In court, the revelations stunned the nation. While the groom faced charges for the murder, the cousin's involvement was undeniable. Though he had not raised a hand against the bride, his actions had lit the fuse. His betrayal ran deeper than greed. It was a calculated act of sabotage, sacrificing an innocent life to topple a family member. The tragedy left scars that wealth could not hide. The bride, who had fought so hard to escape her past, paid the ultimate price. The groom, consumed by pride and anger, lost everything. And the family, once untouchable, was forever stained by betrayal, corruption, and blood.